Breaking news into First Take. The Cowboys have now requested permission to interview Eagles offensive coordinator Kellen Moore for the head coaching job. And now Dan, Stephen A. Of course, Kellen Moore was a player for the Dallas Cowboys. He was a quarterbacks coach, and he was an offensive coordinator at one point. Dan, do you like this, the thought of Kellen Moore leaving Philly as the OC to be the head coach of Dallas?
I love the fact of Kellen getting an opportunity to be a head coach. I think he's brilliant. I played with Kellen. He's unbelievably smart with how he sees football and communicates football and has the vision for football. I think Philly's a great opportunity for him to continue to grow, but at some point you take advantage of the opportunity to go become a head coach for the first time. It feels a little bit like what they did with Jason Garrett many years ago, where Jason Garrett was a backup quarterback for them and eventually became the head coach of the football team. But I think Kellen Moore is a very, very smart offensive mind.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, Dan, because you're the great football mind. He's been enamored, Jerry, with Kellen for a long time. Wasn't his name coming up when they let Jason Garrett go before they brought Mike McCarthy in? But then there was all these claims that, well, you can't. It's the Cowboys bringing a first-time head coach. No, he was just playing. This is too early.
Yeah, Jerry Jones has loved Kellen Moore for a long time. I'd also say this. I think a lot of people in the NFL have been enamored with Kellen Moore for 6, 7, 8 years. Rightfully so.
Stephen A.?
I don't mind it. Not one bit. But for reasons you might not have thought about when you brought up this subject, Molly Wood.
Tell me.
You see, when you look at Kellen Moore, right? Isn't that the guy that was the offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys when they were the second-ranked offense in the National Football League?
Yes, sir.
Isn't that the guy that had a high-powered offense and was still pushed out the door because Mike McCarthy convinced Jerry Jones that, you know what, we were throwing the football entirely too much and not really protecting Dak Prescott, and I would change things and things would be a bit different under me, and he gave Mike McCarthy that power and was willing to shove Kellen Moore aside? Well, that Kellen Moore willing to come back to Dallas, all the complaints that everybody has about Jerry Jones, how would it be any different with Kellen Moore? See, when I talked about Deion Sanders, when I talked about Bill Belichick, that's the difference. You understand? You're not going to push around Bill Belichick. You're not going to just summarily dismiss primetime Deion Sanders, okay? But with Kellen Moore, that's more the same. I'm talking about with Dallas. I'm not casting any aspersions on him. I'm talking about him in Dallas. Anywhere else, Kellen Moore's a big-time candidate, not in Dallas.
Just to clarify with what you're saying, so essentially you're saying because the major issue in Dallas is the lack of culture, right, and the lack of leadership, and you feel like with Deion, that could be instituted, and with Kellen Moore, he would still be run by Jerry Jones.
You got to deal with and know how to offset the impact of Jerry Jones. He ain't the dude for that job. That's not him. He's already proven it.
You say what?
Well, in regards to Kellen Moore not being the guy for the job,
yes.
I think
because of the culture, needing someone to really set a culture there and be the real leader and set precedent.
Yeah, I would say this. You don't know what type of culture builder first-time coaches are going to be until they become a culture builder. Yeah,
Dan Campbell did it.
But you don't know that, though. You just don't know. Now, Kellen Moore's been around Mike McCarthy. He was around Brandon Staley. He was obviously around Nick Sirianni. And by a lot of what we've witnessed this year, it seems like the culture in Philly is pretty good when it comes to dealing with the adversity of the team. I do want to mention something, Stephen A., in regards to the Deion stuff, because I was under the assumption that, in Deion's words, he was only going to go coach in the NFL if he could coach both of his sons, Shedeur and Shiloh.
He said that. I don't believe him.
Correct. Shefty said he thinks that would not be the case if it was Philly or Detroit. Excuse me, Dallas. He thinks for Jerry Jones, if it did happen, it doesn't mean that Shedeur would be going with Deion. He thinks he would make the exception for that.
I believe that because I believe, Stephen A., and correct me if I'm wrong, I think that would be the only outlier team, the Dallas Cowboys, right? Because of who they are, America's team, #1 headline,
Correct.
And obviously he was a Cowboys legend, right?
Listen, I've known Deion for decades, and all I would tell you is this. He's sincere when he talks about wanting to coach these kids, wanting to raise boys into men. He's not lying. He's very sincere. He's always been about that. I think the Dallas Cowboys, for him, would be the exception. I find it very difficult to believe that if Jerry Jones made him a viable offer to be the head coach for the Dallas Cowboys, that primetime Deion Sanders would turn that down. I just find that very difficult to believe. I don't believe it. And by the way, I told him so.
Yeah. I feel like this needs to happen. So.
If they hire Deion, it would signal to me that they actually want to win. I think there's a lot of
they want to make a splash. Yeah.
No, and by the way, Molly, people have crucified Jerry Jones, saying that headlines, are his versions of championships that he wants to win. Well, who the hell's going to win more headlines than primetime and Dallas?
Yeah. I mean, look what we're talking about.
Yeah, but maybe wrestle him away from Jerry.
Yeah.
Not sure he wants that either.
But honestly, think about it right now. Divisional weekend coming up, and what are we talking about?
Cowboys.
Exactly.
Yeehaw.
Hey, Cowboys fan. So, we all know what happened. Mike McCarthy is out, and now the Dallas Cowboys are searching for a new head coach. But the real question is, who will be the next to lead the Cowboys back to the top? This is where things get interesting. As you can imagine, Dallas isn't wasting any time. They've cast a wide net, looking at a range of candidates, some with ties to the team and others who could bring fresh ideas. Among these names is a familiar one, Kellen Moore. Yes, the former Cowboys offensive coordinator is now in the mix, and the team has already sent a request to the Eagles to speak with him about the head coach vacancy. Now, here's where I want to know your thoughts. Do you think Kellen Moore would be a good fit to take over as head coach? Drop a comment below and let me know, or you can vote in the poll that should pop up right now. Do you want Moore back as the head coach? The Cowboys are looking at several candidates, but Moore is already making waves as a strong contender. Stay with me, because in the next chapter, we'll dive into Moore's journey through the Cowboys organization and how he got here. Trust me, you'll want to hear this. Alright, let's take a trip down memory lane for a second. Kellen Moore didn't just wake up one day and become a head coaching candidate. His path with the Cowboys has been a long and interesting one. Moore first came to Dallas as a backup quarterback, but his story didn't stop there. He quickly made the transition from player to coach, and that's where things really started to heat up. After retiring in 2018, he jumped into coaching and was named defensive coordinator just 1 year later in 2019. It's pretty wild to think about how quickly Moore went from being a backup QB to the guy calling the shots for the offense. But here's the catch: Moore's time as the Cowboys offensive coordinator came with some growing pains. While his offense had its moments, the real turning point came when McCarthy took over the play-calling duties in 2022. They didn't exactly see eye to eye on the direction of the offense, and that led to Moore's departure. Now, here's a question for you, my friend. Do you think Kellen Moore was a victim of a bad system, or do you think he wasn't quite up to the challenge of running the offense? Cast your vote in the poll and leave a comment telling me what you think. Moore's time in Dallas was marked by ups and downs, but there's no denying the potential he showed, and the Cowboys' relationship with him didn't just end when he left. In fact, that familiarity could play a huge role in his potential return. Let's talk about that next. So after parting ways with the Cowboys, Kellen Moore didn't exactly hit the ground running in Los Angeles. His stint as the offensive coordinator for the Chargers in 2023 was brief and, let's be honest, a bit forgettable. The offense didn't quite click the way many expected, and it raised some questions about whether Moore was the right fit for the job. But here's the thing: his time with the Chargers wasn't a complete disaster. It just wasn't the success he had hoped for. That experience, however, is part of his growth, and Moore knows he has more to offer. Now, here's the kicker. Despite his less than stellar run in LA, Moore's departure from the Cowboys was far from a bitter one. He had a strong relationship with key players on the roster: Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and even Jake Ferguson. That familiarity could be an enormous advantage if he were to return. What do you think, though? Do you think Moore's time in LA should be a deal breaker, or do you think his history with the Cowboys could outweigh that? Vote in the poll and tell me your thoughts in the comments. Coming up next, we're diving into Kellen Moore's current role with the Philadelphia Eagles and how he's found success there. Don't go anywhere. Alright, let's switch gears for a minute and talk about Kellen Moore's current role with the Philadelphia Eagles. Things have gone a lot better for him there, right? The Eagles are one of the top teams in the league, and Moore has been part of their impressive offensive success. With weapons like Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, and Saquon Barkley, it's no wonder the Eagles are a force to be reckoned with. Moore has had a front row seat to what a powerful offense looks like, and he's had the chance to work with one of the best offensive lines in football. The question now is, could Moore bring that kind of success to Dallas? There's no doubt he's learned from his time in Philly, and he knows exactly what it takes to put together a top-tier offense. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Moore's experience with the Eagles will help him he becomes the Cowboys' next head coach? Vote in the poll and let me know what you think in the comments. Up next, we're going to take a look at why Moore could be the perfect fit for Dallas in 2025. Stay tuned. So let's wrap this up by looking at the future. Could Kellen Moore be the guy to lead the Cowboys in 2025? After all, his familiarity with the team, especially with key players like Prescott and ceedee Lamb, could give him a huge edge in stepping into the head coach role. Moore's experience with both the Cowboys and the Eagles means he's seen what works and what doesn't. He knows the importance of offensive balance, and with the weapons Dallas already has, he could really take the offense to new heights. Plus, there's something to be said about the relationship he has with the players. A strong bond could help build a winning culture in Dallas. But what do you think? Do you believe Moore's time has come to lead the Cowboys, or do you think they should look elsewhere? Vote in the poll, and don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments. I want to know where you stand. Thanks for sticking with me through this deep dive into Kellen Moore's potential future with the Cowboys. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and hit the bell so you don't miss any updates. I'll catch you in the next video.